We're live. Well, hi, welcome to another Monday at 4 on Dance of the Soul, which we've been doing it for, about a year and 5 months. And we always trying to think of a topic every week. And some topics are worth repeating, which, we did a lot on grief. There's just so much of that going around. I think maybe in the last year we talked about that 3 or 4 times. But there's always people going through that. But today we wanted to talk about guilt and shame, two topics which people don't like to talk about much because,
Exactly.
yeah, it brings up, even just saying that, if you're watching right now or you're watching in the future, just saying those words, all of a sudden your subconscious has probably popped out a couple CDs, and then you're wondering whether you should watch the rest of the show or not, because it's going to maybe make you think about it. But I think what we're going to do today, we
Thumbs
want to
up.
touch that from a spiritual perspective, because it's something we all go through. Guilt and shame at different parts in our life. There's always things we do that we're ashamed of later when we go to the low part of ourselves. And we carry a lot of that along with us. Sometimes people carry it for the rest of their life. And every time they think about an issue that they did, even if it's 40 years ago, they just feel that really sad energy, coming out because they haven't maybe fully dealt with it. But before we get started, let's Natasha and I introduce ourselves. My name is Regan Forsten, and I'm have a business, or I should say a practice, called visittheafterlife.com. I'm one of the 250 trained Newton Institute therapists, and we're doing research into the afterlife. Have been for almost 50 years now, and it's all about what happens to us when we pass away. What happens at the moment of death. Okay, then what happens after death? Where do we go? And we've had about 70,000 people through this process. We have actually visit the afterlife, visit the place where you go in between lives. And we've taken notes and everything from what everybody learned, because when people are on the other side, they spend a couple hours in full consciousness there, visiting loved ones, kind of like what you'll see what Natasha does to help you do. Also, most of the people are fortunate to be able to go before a council of elders, and with the prepared list of questions you have, they can answer questions about your current life, such as, what was my mission? What did I hope to learn in this life? Why did I choose the people in my life? Why am I having such a difficult time with this certain coworker that makes me want to pow him, something like this. So, and we found that everybody has the ability. It's like Natasha seemed to be born with the ability to be able to do this. She doesn't need to go through this process, but most of the rest of us, normal humans, we go through.
We aren't all normal. I'm going to say that
Yeah,
right away. We're
we're just
not all normal.
exceptionally normal. So
Yeah,
we
what
seem
is
to all
normal?
have the ability to be our own medium, but in the proper circumstances where we can communicate with the other side and get answers to things. So Natasha, she'll introduce herself now, does this on a direct way. She's the medium. She's in between here and there. She's the one in the middle, that can help you with that sort of thing. So Natasha, please let everybody know out there, if they don't know already, what you do.
Well, I'm Natasha Venter, and I love to support people working through a lot of what we're talking about today, actually. I enjoy the moments where I can give grace and ease to life, because there's many times where, even like going into a session with Regan, you go into the afterlife and there's messages, and you kind of go, I'm lost. I don't know what that means. I don't know how to put two and two together. It's discombobulating sometimes. And that's one of my skills, is bringing a lot of the different things together to bring forth the message that was truly there. And I love to bring in the moments where, messages from the loved ones that, we don't all have the ability to go into a hypnotic moment. And can be that visitor between. And many people, like, I was helping a young girl at my elementary school who is intuitive. She sees spirits, she works with spirits, and yet she's been bombarded. And so I love to give that skill to someone. And the other day I was with her and she goes, I called in this I called in Archangel Michael to help me, and it didn't feel like him. And I said, "Okay, so let's go through and let's feel what different energies feel like." So I called in Mother Mary and I brought in Mother Mary's energy. She goes, "Oh my." And then I called in Jesus and she goes, "Oh, that feels different." And then I called in Archangel Raphael and Gabriel, and so she was able to feel at different places. And so for that I love to bring in those skills and those tools to help people know what really is around them and how to work with them.
Yeah, and actually, getting the more information you can get from the other side, the easier it is to navigate your current life. And I think the easier it's going to be when we talk about that today to forgive yourself and others, um, because
Yes.
it's a two-way street. Because there's other people feeling shame and guilt for things they've done to us. We love them, and the biggest thing we can do to help them to progress is to forgive them for forgive us, for the trespasses they've had against us. You know, so it's a two-way street. That's what we want to look at today. It's not only just the guilt and shame that you have that we want you to let go of and move on, but it's to help others move on by forgiving them. You know,
Mhm.
so everybody watching now, think of something that you feel guilty about or some shame in. You don't, if you're calling the show today, you don't have to be specific, but let's talk about it today. If anybody is listening live, and how you were able to get over it, or how you were able to help someone else get over their guilt or shame.
Mhm.
That's a gift. That's a real gift to give somebody. Like if you have a child or a teenager or a spouse or someone close to you, and you can see that they're feeling this guilt and shame, and that they need to move on. And how can you help them that way? Because we all do things. You know.
Exactly. I know for me, being a mother, I'm thinking of many times in my own mindset in different times of my life going through grief or dealing with I've been honest, and he knows about this, my alcoholic husband, that there's been many a times where I was in a moment of emotional, I can only say emotion, I can't tell you which one because it was all a bag at that time.
Right.
But you know that my children, many times, that in a way of being in survival mode that I was, that I did shame my kids into doing things for me.
Yeah.
I even, uh, if I, there's been a time when we were going to go do something and I shamed my kids into going. And it was like, now I'm thinking about it, and even writing what I wrote last night about it, I'm thinking, God, I need to call my kids and say I'm sorry for shaming and guilting you into doing things. I didn't. It's something that I even had to be careful of it. Like us going down, we're going to be going down to my father-in-law's service here in a couple weeks, and uh, I had to be very careful not to shame my kids into going. If they didn't
Yeah.
want to go, I had to let them make their choice. And it was like, that fine line was interesting for me to observe myself in. And not everybody observes themselves, but I love to do that about myself, because if I can't observe myself, how can I observe others? And so with that I really noticed how much I have in the past shamed my kids into to doing things, and I wouldn't do it like necessarily for small things. It was something like going, we're going to go down to Florida to see the in-laws, and or grandma and grandpa. You want to go? Well, not really. Mm, but really you should go. It's like, I wouldn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And that and I know that sometimes in my intuitiveness, I get these cross messages, and I'm gonna be honest about this, that I get this big feeling like this last year going down to Christmas time. It was like, we have to go to Florida. And even though I had one son that was like, "It's the busiest time of work, Mom." I go, "But we have to get," and so I was crossing that line of shame, but yet at the same time, it was like that calling that I had, that we don't know how long Grandpa's gonna be here. And, going through that. And then I did it with my other child, and I did, it's like, "I'll even pay for your plane tickets. Come on, let's go." And there's that fine line of doing it for a better reason or doing it not for a better reason. Well, I'm glad that if shame was how I did it, that we all went,
Yeah.
because the fact that he passed away 2 months later,
Yeah.
3 months later, that, it's one of those things that we have to be careful how we do it, and what is our intention, because we can
Yeah.
slip into guilt and shame so easily. And there's that negative condensation, what's the word, it eats away at us. And if we do it a lot when our kids are growing up, it can be an easy go-to for a lot of us.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about for a minute. Is there an upside to guilt and shame? I don't know. Just from my
Sun's
viewpoint,
coming out, so I'm having to move. Sorry.
yeah, I don't know the exact answer to that, but it seems that if you have some guilt or shame and it leads to you changing something and deciding to be better the next time, then that guilt and shame maybe was the feeling that you needed to get you to make the change that you needed to make, you know.
Hmm.
So maybe, in that case, feeling a little guilt and shame I guess, anytime that we put a negative on the chalkboard in the day, we have a little bit of guilt or a little bit about it. Oh, I shouldn't have. Here was this person I could have let in the door before me, but then I'm afraid they're going to go ahead of me in line. So I'm just gonna pop in there real quick before them because I don't want to. I don't want to have that awkward thing about letting them in. Then they're getting in line before us, and then Uh,
Yeah, exactly.
but I know it feels better when you just go, you know what, just going to open the door for them. I'd be happy to have them go in front of me and I'll just be there. That's to me that when I do that, I feel like I put a plus on the day's thing and I feel better about the day and myself and the other person seeing they acknowledging that you let them go first makes them feel special too, makes them feel like someone did a nice polite thing for them. So it's just good all the way around, that way. But, we do a lot of little things that we feel a little guilty about. And some things we're only guilty about for a few seconds and then we're on to something else. But we always, anytime we do something of a negative nature, there's a little bit of guilt there because we know in our better selves that there's a better way to do it. And we shouldn't,
Hmm.
do that, I mean, it could be as much as there's one piece of pie left and you're going to cut it in two for and share it with somebody. And there's always that part of you that wants that little bigger piece. You feel so good when you go, nope, this is a little bit better. And you give it to the other person, then your pie tastes better. And they like the fact that you were,
Yeah, not always.
I know, sometimes, you know. So,
You're talking to an only child. No, that doesn't
well,
work.
see, one thing now, I mean, I grew up Catholic, as some of you know on the show, and one of the beautiful things about that religion is confession. We alluded to that a couple of times over the last year, but man, what a great invention that is for people because we can't just we can't carry all the guilt and shame of everything we've ever done. I mean, that would drive you to drugs and alcohol, which a lot of people do.
Yes.
There has to be a point when we go, hey, enough. I need to. I'm not that same person anymore. I made those mistakes, and I'm really sorry about it. That's why they say I forget what it is in confession now, but in order to actually be forgiven, you have to be truly sorry. You know, um, you
Yes.
know.
And that's
So
hard for some of us.
yeah, yeah. Well, Constantine, I think he waited, at least what I hear, he was the one to help bring the Christianity into the mainstream, to be the official religion of the time. But he knew about this thing about forgiveness, so he did all the havoc and everything that he needed to do, and then on his deathbed he confessed. So that was to me, I thought that's kind of I don't know how that's going to go over too good on the other side, but that was the belief system.
And I'm going to say this to you about that too, that I know for me that forgiveness, when we cross over, it's more easier for our emotional body, soul connection to be released the more that we have that forgiveness moment,
Yeah.
or that I'm okay, things are okay moment, or that breath moment. There's less of a tug and pull that goes on. And, forgiveness is about us,
Yeah.
really, in that moment. And, you know, I know for a lot of people, flipping that coin back over again to guilt and shame is that they feel guilty and shameful that they weren't at the deathbed of someone that they love so dearly.
Yeah.
I get so many sessions in that moment. I wasn't there. I needed to be there. Well, you probably really needed to be there for you, the person, but not necessarily for the person that was passing.
Yeah.
Because the person who was passing, in some ways, like my dad wanted me there, my mom didn't want me there, my uncle didn't want me there. There we all have these different things that when we're crossing over, that
Yeah.
sometimes if we have somebody around us, it's harder for us to leave.
Yeah.
So with that we can, if I can give breath to someone, knowing that if you weren't there at their deathbed, that doesn't matter. That doesn't influence you saying goodbye or you saying those moments. And
Yeah.
actually, it might be nice not to see that last moment.
Yeah. I
It's
think
not
that's
always pretty.
everybody that has someone that's in the hospital that may die has to go through this thing. Do I go see them, or do I, or don't I? You all go through that, and it's I don't think there's a right, like you're saying, it's not a right or wrong way.
Mm-mm.
You just have to kind of navigate through. At the very least, I would say that you have some communication with that person, either through a text or phone call, email. Have someone that is going to be there, give a message for you, just so that that person knows. I know when I was in the hospital, and people thought I was going to die about, what was that, 7 years ago or something. And I didn't necessarily have to have everybody come. I didn't actually want anybody to come and see me because I was just out of it, and it was too much energy to try to entertain the people that were there, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I just my sister sent me some cards, which just warmed my heart, all the way from Kansas to Hawaii, where I was at in the hospital. And like I say, my sister asked if the elders from the Mormon church came by, because she's Mormon, and they came by a little bit. But I just knew everybody was out there thinking about me, and I just felt good. They didn't have to actually see them in the physical, that they would be there.
Mm-hmm.
Even if whatever, when my funeral is, I don't need people to be there. I mean, I'll be on the other side dancing. So, but it's just, I just want, hopefully people think of me fondly when I leave. If not, then I didn't deserve it, I guess.
How can they not, knowing I haven't even met you physically yet, and I love you. It's like, and people who know me probably say, "Well, you love everybody," but
Yeah, right. You love everybody. What does that mean? So that's it. You were a very, what I looked up to, a very spiritual person 20, 30 years ago, said something to me, that this woman that he was married to or something, and someone asked about love or something. And then he just said, God gave us the capacity to love totally anybody that we're with, in other words, to just say, well, I can't love this person, but I can love another person. But I think we strive to just, like I say, love one another, even our adversaries, because that they're going through stuff. I don't know, this thing, but I think Like me, I always tend to give everybody the benefit of the doubt at first. And then our common sense comes in sometimes to protect ourselves. We have to watch out for some souls that are working on their stuff, and we don't want them to take it out, like to con us or steal from us or that. But it's the same thing, you got to have compassion for them because they're on their journey.
Hmm.
Sometimes, one thing we found out in the research now through the Newton Institute, most of the time when people have done some rotten stuff here and they get to the other side, nobody over there judges them. They don't get thrown in hell or anything like that. But it's the soul themselves when they get joined with their higher self that's the one that's on their own case. Like, oh, I
Yes.
should have done.
And that's
Why
why
didn't
the
I do that?
angels and guides and what family members are there is not necessarily to have judgment for them, but it's that
Yeah,
holding the space of healing for the soul.
yeah. So,
And that's
yeah.
where
So,
working through a lot of our I so enjoy and it's not necessarily a joyful moment. It's not a ha 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 joyful, but it's that, oh, I'm doing something that can help this person, joy type. That when working through that guilt and that shame of doing things, I know for me, I had to be careful of a lot of the guilt that I felt when I was taking care of my mom with Lou Gehrig's or and I'm still negotiating some of that human part of me that's negotiating some of that with my grandfather and my mother of heart.
yeah,
And because I didn't go see my grandfather like I was called to and want to there again is that should game. That should game.
yeah,
And I was watching something today, kind of making a little side note here. I was watching something today for my schooling, and she says, should, you know, I should go to the store. I should do this. I should do that. Well, that adds on guilt. Well, I didn't do it, so I'm going to be punishing myself for it, right? Well, changing our conversation around, saying something like, hmm, do I want to go to the store or don't I want to go to the store? And even though I need milk, but should I go to the store to get the milk? Well, I can make the decision. Could I go to this morning or can I go tonight? You know, changing our conversation about how we're making these decisions. Well, yeah, I really I should I do stay in bed like yesterday morning. Should I stay in bed a little bit longer and then do my spiritual Zoom session and then go do yard work? Or should I not? See, I caught myself. Or I could get up, go outside for a little bit, come in, do my spiritual work, and then go back out again. So it's that choices and then taking ourselves off the should game can release a lot of that self guilt that we put ourselves through.
yeah, yeah.
And the
Because some
shaming,
people,
"Well, I didn't go to the store. Why didn't I go to the store? I should have gone to the store. Why didn't I go to the store? Ah, you
yeah.
know?
Uh, we mentioned the Enneagram every once in a while. We could do a show on that sometime, would be great. But basically, it looks like God's created 9 different softwares, 1 to 9. They're all equal, but they're all of the human traits that we have. Different people's some of those traits are more predominant, and others are in different order. Another, but threes. If you those know the Enneagram threes, they're called the achiever because they have this they just have this thing they got to get up and they have to achieve something in the day. So they have this long list of things. And Patty's that way. Like when I get up in the morning, I look at her list. She's got 30, maybe 30 things already crossed off. She's already done. I just can't believe it. But then let's say there's 40 things on there and they do 30 in the day. They feel guilty, like they didn't. Why didn't they get those other 10 done? Like I should have done this instead of just letting it go. You know.
Yes, exactly. Doing the things that we're called to. Like yesterday, this last weekend, I was doing yard work. And I didn't play the should game. I should do this, and this part of my yard. I did where should I go next? So I did the portion of the garden that I know I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I'm getting to a spot that it would be really nice to have my husband here, where he could use his strength, to get into the deeper rooted stuff, and
Mhm.
I will pull the roots up. I'll be on the ground pulling the roots up. So it's a dual thing. Oh, well, I think I'll wait for him. Okay. And then where should I go? Where am I going to go next? Oh, my ivy. I'll cut that back. And it was interesting how, oh, my body's asking me to sit down now. Okay, I'll go sit down for a little bit. And it was interesting to have a block of time
Mhm.
that I didn't should myself. Like, I really felt like I was in this one section, and it was like all of a sudden I felt, if I don't stop now, I'm going to have a migraine. I think I'll stop now. And I gave myself permission to stop.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
To give myself a time to stop. And it was interesting that I sat there for a minute and I just felt my muscles relaxing. I didn't end up with a migraine. This is the first time I did that much yard work and I didn't have a migraine.
Yeah. I
And
like
it
that.
was that communication with thyself. And that was the thing that I really got today when I was watching the conscious, it's called conscious discipline, funny enough, that, how do we talk with ourselves to integrate that different kind of shame guilt game?
Yeah.
And
I
how
never
much do
thought
our
of
other significant other, like, I should do it because my husband wants me to do it. I should
yeah.
do this. And I really had to be careful of that this weekend because my husband works really hard, and he came home from work and it was like, well, I didn't get that done. I didn't get that done. I didn't get that done. But what he said is, you got a lot done. And I was
Yeah.
like, hmm, I kind of did a balance, didn't I?
Yeah. So many things are so subtle, but I like that you brought that up today because anytime we're doing things with the feeling of I should do something, there's already something of a negative nature happening just in saying I should rather than I want to. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, uh, I don't. Think of it like I don't wake up and think, oh, I should go golfing today. I wake up, I want to go golfing, and
I want
Right,
to.
and when we can be that way about, taking the trash out, "Oh, let me just take the trash out. That'll be great, and it'll be out of the house and have it done," instead of like, "Oh, I guess I should take it out now," like, and even just saying that, I could feel the negative energy in me. So,
Hmm.
um, that's how the poet Rumi, for those of you who haven't read any poetry from Rumi, he's the most published poet in the history of the world. And he was a Sufi mystic back, I think, 15th, 16th century, something like that.
Hmm.
And his poems have been translated in so many languages and everything. And his whole thing is just joy. Whatever you do, I could just, in the poems that I read from him, some of them which I don't get because I'm not at that point yet. I think spiritually that it's beyond me, but I do get the basics of it where, it's just about, just getting up and just love, love, love during the day, doesn't matter what you're doing. Um, that way. Oh, okay. Maybe I told this in the last year. I don't know, but it's such a good thing that taught me about just loving what you do. I've been on a 7-day. It's called Warrior Monk Retreat, where we created a place. We had people that were Sufis there. We had a rabbi and another Jewish man. We had a few Christians there and a few people that were just out and out spiritual, and
Hmm.
we created this nice retreat for 7 days where we're trying to figure out what to do with our mission in life. In other words, figure out what our mission is and then why aren't we doing it, and find out what steps do we need to do and when do we need to get them done, in what order. It was a very good way of going within yourself and realizing we got to get something done here,
Mhm.
And by the end of the 6th day, um, uh, I was so into my higher self, I guess, that there's this part of me that wanted to sneak out of the compound. They recommend that you stay. We're not locked in or anything, but they recommend you stay in that. But I and I didn't want to feel guilty about it. We're talking about guilt and shame. But I talked to the gardener and asked for the gate code, and he gave it to me. So at night I snuck out and I said, I'm feeling so high and everything. I got to go see some kind of movie where they're killing things or something, some kind of like, kind of escape movie or something. I just to balance myself out. So I got out and I'm feeling free, and I'm driving about the 20 miles to where this place was. I said, well, I'm going to go into the 7-Eleven and get some snacks because they're too expensive at the, to buy them at the concession stand. And so there's a young Indian man. He was Sufi because he had the,
Mhm.
you know,
The
uh,
turban.
the turban, like, young. He looked like 21, 22, and nobody else was in the store. And I'm so high and everything there. And I just said, well, let me just say hi to him in a nice way. So I just said, wow. And he was so nice. I said, hi. And I said, I really like the way you just seem to be enjoying your job. And then he just stopped for a moment and he said, that's what my mom taught me. She said, no matter what I do, whether it's cleaning toilets or working in a 7-Eleven or whatever, to have joy in everything that I did. And to me, that was like maybe one of your angels or something over me, teaching me a little lesson there, and I always had remembered that, how joyful he was in just doing mundane, you know, mundane stuff, So then I ran over to the box office and there's no one else in line. I give my money to the person at the box office, and she just smiled at me big and she says, "Thank you for coming to the theater today. It's nice to have you here. I never had a ticket taker. It's usually just give you that, And then
Mhm.
as I'm walking to go to the door, someone runs about 15 feet from where they were to open the door for me. I felt like I was a king or something. They just opened the door and I walked in and they said, wow, it's nice to have you here tonight. And there's nobody else around. Like, I'm the only one here. And then I go over to the popcorn person and there's this teenage girl. And I just remember the smile she had. And I said, well, it looks like you're loving what you're doing. She says, yeah, I love it here. And I said, do you smell the popcorn anymore? She says, no, I don't smell the popcorn anymore. After you've been here for a while, you don't smell it, So I said, where's the restroom? And, oh no. So I thanked her. I backed up for a moment and then I was trying to, I didn't see the restrooms right around there. And there was a worker. I said, where's the restroom? And they said, well, you got to go up the stairs. It's up over here. And they said, let me hold your popcorn and your Coke for you while you go to the restroom. So this worker there held my popcorn and my Coke. Okay. So I go up, I come back down. They give me that. And I go over towards the door and another person runs over and opens the door to the theater for me. And at that point, I inwardly, I started crying, you know, it was just like, I was just bombarded with love from good-hearted people that seemed to, make me feel like a king or something,
Mhm.
So it was a big lesson for me about when we get in that state, when we get in that loving state, like it took me 5 or 6 days at that retreat to get there, kind of like let our false self fall away and our true
Mhm.
self kind of emerge, that you become a magnet for love, you know, and that's what I hope to do with the guilt and shame that I've had over my life, is realize I got to treat myself like those people treated me, you know,
Mhm.
with love. And okay, Regan, maybe you goofed up a little bit, but it's okay.
Yes. And that's the thing is that going through that, it was part of the process of where I was at. It doesn't give an excuse, like talking about me earlier being the mom where I was at. I still want to honor my children by saying I I want to make a right-ish moment out of a wrong-ish moment.
Yeah.
And honor that moment that they may be carrying, to give them a little bit more grace. And I can't hold on to that where I was then, where I am now. What I can do now, though, is if I feel that pattern creating again, to stop myself.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to heal the moment,
Yeah.
is to hear my children and say, Mom, I don't want to go. Okay. Now I may say, okay, guys, I feel like there's something big going to happen, and I
Yeah.
really feel like there should be something coming on, but it's my intuitive talking right now. And, name it and claim what it is that I am calling them to really do. Yet at the same time, though, I can't be responsible for their choices.
Yeah.
And as much as it feels right to me, it may not feel right to them. And that's their movie. So holding on to those moments where I am feeling frustrated because I really want them to go, but really, is it my choice, my calling for them to go, or is it their truth? And it's honoring those moments, and if we can step back and kind of do that life review of where we've been and where we're going, that we can really see where I was isn't where I am today. I
Yeah.
was, like, if I look back on those moments where I really learned how to shame and guilt myself, that I learned it through a lot of my stuff when I was growing up, a lot of childhood stuff. And then I unknowingly, in a way, because of where I was at mentally, put it on my children,
Yeah.
and others sometimes. And I know that through relationships, I've, my partner, through his mindset, would shame and guilt.
I feel sorry for and that's when I deal with a lot of clients with PTSD. Is one of my specialties that I like to help people with that issue. And the biggest thing, a lot of time that comes up, especially military soldiers, is this guilt and shame they have for the things that they had to do while they were a soldier.
No.
And uh, and I'm thinking now, like in Ukraine, on both sides now, and these thousands and thousands and thousands of young men, mostly, and now the war's not going to last forever. Let's say if it's over 6 months or a year or 2 years, whatever it lasts. And I just feel sorry for them of the things that, all this conflicting thing besides duty, what's right, what's wrong. There's all kinds of moral issues that come into there that they're not cut and dried. I mean, the military tries to make it cut and dried. They're the enemy, you kill them or they kill us. It's
Mhm.
not that cut and dried.
Mm-mm.
And it's going to be a lot of that going on. But the biggest thing that helps people get better from PTSD in that certain situation is forgiving them. Trying to go to their higher self, looking at the situation as a whole, and loving the heck out of themselves and just forgiving themselves. A sample of doing the tapping, would be, I'm thinking of a client, even though I had to kill this person, I didn't want to, but I did, even though I killed this person and I never wanted to kill anybody, I love and accept myself. I love and accept myself, even though I did this horrible thing, even though I have this guilt and the shame that won't go away, and as they're doing this tapping, and they're talking about like their guilt and their shame, and then they go to their higher self, and it's like, even though I did this horrible thing in my
Mhm.
mind, I love and accept myself, and they go to, about that to get that. And when they can kind of get past that guilt and shame a little bit and go to this higher viewpoint a bit, that's when I watch them, they just kind of
Mhm.
down regulate, and they start to, get some semblance of back to themselves again. So it's hard. So anybody, what I was just doing there is called EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, which is like the miracle of miracles for helping with excess emotion you have about any issue. Your
Yes.
cortisol level goes down, your blood starts running through your system. Like, there's a huge beneficial effect on that, tested by actually Harvard. medical school. So look that up if you, if you have some really bad guilt and shame, like you've done something that you think you don't want to even tell the therapist sometime. Well, you can do this EFT on yourself and and it really, really helps. So
Yeah, we got a couple of hearts and a couple of thumbs up. So, it's one of those things that as we go through life, working through some of these navigations of what we hold on to, it can really eat away at us. And, we can either be a soldier and carrying that shame and guilt. I know that I've helped a couple people of thinking bad things in relationships. Why did I think that I wanted him dead? In
yeah,
that relationship. Why? And it's like, because you were at the end of your rope. You were in this moment of post-traumatic syndrome type of thing because of all the challenges you went through. And you never know what that does to us in our minds, and we go to the nth degree of um of language for ourselves.
yeah,
It's interesting there, with how anger and frustration and pain, inner pain, can really get us to those moments, and then later we go, why? Why was I thinking that? And that's one thing that I always fall back on with my dad wonderfully gave this to me was, at this minute in time, I have this much information. And I make a decision on that information I have at that second in time.
yeah,
Tomorrow, I'll have other information and I may regret that decision, but I was only there at that time making that decision. So
yeah,
I have to own up to that. And that's the thing is like, I, in a way, I've worked through a lot of my guilt when I was taking care of my mom with Lou Gehrig's disease. I was not always the better person during those moments. I was really tired. I had a newborn baby. I had a 4-year-old. I have an alcoholic husband. I sold 3 houses and bought one in 1 year. Oh, and my husband changed his job in that year. I was done and cooked. And I kept having that's where my universe, my higher self, somebody kept running that tape. At this minute in time, I'm making this decision because I know that I'm only this tired at this minute in time.
right.
And a year after my mom passed, I would look back on that going, you were so tired, you were making that decision. That's what you were doing. And if we can have a statement like that, it doesn't make what we did okay, but it makes it more negotiable for the guilt and the shame.
Yeah,
And that helps us later in life. Now, what I did at those moments is I checked in with myself when I had to make those decisions and make sure that I was doing the better that I could for everybody around me. So I would stop and make sure that everybody around me, so I wasn't making an excuse for that time, but I was making a moment of check in, where am I at everywhere with my intention.
yeah.
And that helped me to do better, even if I could not do as better as I wanted to.
You know,
I'm not a natural caregiver anyways. I'm really not a natural caregiver. That's why I think the universe gave me a new baby when my mom was passing, because my husband would feed my mom when I was feeding my baby.
yeah. Well, that's back to an Enneagrams. What they call 2 on the Enneagram scale are caregivers, and they will just do and do and do for everybody.
Mhm.
Uh, but not everybody of those 9 types. A lot of the other types aren't like that.
Yeah.
Some people are born caregivers and others aren't that way. One thing that I when
I'm not. I'm a giver of care. I'm a
yeah,
very big giver of care. I'm not a caregiver.
yeah, there's a
I
difference.
know that.
So, one thing that I was thinking of when we decided to talk about this topic that I wrote down is how one thing that's a lot of the things that we have guilt or shame or things that we've done to other people or things. And what's good is that most of those things you can make amends. In other words, it's not, I mean, it's sad. Someone like one of my clients had an argument with her husband, and he took off on his motorcycle, and the mattress fell off on the truck ahead, and he died. And that's the last thing she remembers, is telling him to go to hell, and he jumped on his motorcycle. That's a tough one. You got to really do some, some stuff there. But most of the
Yeah,
things
don't do it alone.
yeah.
That's
Um,
mm,
one of the things that's so good about the excuse me, people going to AA, is one of the steps is to make amends.
mhm.
And I remember someone who had harmed me in a certain way went through AA, and then they came to me later to make amends, to actually pay me for breaking a cell phone and my glasses when you know something happened. And this was like 5-6 years later, but that really it was a beautiful moment, when they even all those years later, and they came to me, gave me a few dollars even for it, which I was going to say, no, I don't need the money or thing, but I thought I need to let them give me that money, because that's going to help them,
Mhm. Do
fulfill
the healing.
their, make an
Mhm.
amends. So that was a beautiful thing to see that. And I feel like I healed too, from that, even though I was the one that had the abuse done to me. um, it was a beautiful moment, and I always remember that, and that person was in a program, and serious about it, about making amends. So uh, we'll have to do another show about how hard it is to say I'm sorry, because that
Mm.
is not the most easy thing to do for a lot of people, and
No,
there's a lot of
or it
reasons.
runs off, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry."
Yeah,
It's a little bit of a dance. I
it
know it
is. But a very sincere, from your heart, I'm sorry, can do wonders
is.
for
Mhm.
helping you get rid of your guilt and your shame, and helps you to get forgiveness from that other person. You know, uh, so I don't know. I don't know why it's. We'll have to talk about that in another show. Like, why is it? You would think that would be easy to do, to say you're sorry, but it's
Not
when
that vulnerable. I'm really
yeah,
mean, I don't know what I did wrong, but I am very apologetic if I did harm you in any
yeah.
way.
I admire people that I can feel that they easily can go to the very sincere "I'm sorry." I'm just thinking of one person in mind that I know of that's in my life, and I just I go, gosh, I want to be like that. I'm getting there, but it's still, I don't know why it's difficult. But so you can make amends. Now, yeah, so sometimes you can say, it's funny how so many people say they're sorry without saying the words, by just changing their behavior.
Mhm.
They just all of a sudden
But
they're,
there's something about the acknowledgement.
yeah,
There's something about the acknowledgement here, so then the actions speak louder.
yeah, yeah.
You
I
know,
mean, I think that's the best thing, is just, when you can sincerely say you're sorry, that's not, you're not just healing, the other person, is you're healing yourself, but
exactly. And that does help with a lot of the guilt we hold on to for the moment, or the shame that I feel or we feel when in that moment. And I can tell you that if we cannot do that physically with someone, safely light a candle and talk into the candle. Having a moment where you are giving a the flame of fire is a very healing moment. Fire is one of the purer elements out there, because of the fact that even if you contaminate it with something bad, that it does clean it up, right? And so with that when you're speaking into the fire element, it does burn up and send away. Like, one of the greatest ceremonies you can do is at a full moon or a new moon. You write down your things that you want to release or you want to have in your life, and then you read it 3 times, and then you burn it safely in an outside fire pit or something like that, and let the smoke go off. And it's amazing how when we put something in an intention like that, how when we express it into something and let that go out,
Mhm.
it's amazing how even if we can't speak to the person, it's still felt. There's something that changes in the energy around that moment,
Yeah.
which releases the energy around the situation in both of us.
I used to think that kind of stuff was kind of silly years ago,
It's
but
not.
once you get this higher viewpoint and you realize that a ceremony, or like you could say that's in a sense um, is a ceremonial in some sense of writing and doing what you're doing, and it's like what connects us from the physical to the metaphysical in a way. It's kind of like a way of combining the two.
Mhm.
And so it's in the act of doing that, you're in your mind, seeing how the mind works, and you know that you have in this ceremony, when you do this certain thing, it's going to, relieve. I don't know, having a hard time with the words, but it's like instead of just not having ceremony and just floundering around, well, how do I do this? It's kind of an organized way of you doing something, and well, just like going to confession, it's a ritual. You go
Mhm.
there and you talk to the priest, and he gives you a few Our Fathers, Hail Marys. You come out, you say them, and you're sincere when you do it, and you walk out feeling good. So I know I was in um, a Hindu uh, place, went for a service one time, and one of the things was they had you put down something that you wanted to be forgiven for, and then everybody came up and you put them in this fire, you know, and it went that way. And I thought, wow, that's pretty. It's another way of of making atonement, or
Mhm.
yourself of clearing your slate, or you know,
It's your personal confession moment. I know that for me, when I have done a smoke or a sweat lodge,
yeah,
we tie prayers into tide, and some of them are about what do we want to release, the shame and the guilt, and it's amazing how doing a cleansing moment, i.e. writing things down. Dear John, I'm so sorry for the moment that I had with you. I'm pained inside by our conversation that we had, and I could never say I was sorry, and I'm saying that now. And you read that, and then I have like an outside fire pit, and I put it outside and I light it, and it goes away, and it's that, oh, because those shame and the guilt times are so impactful in our lives.
yeah.
And I can tell you that right now, as I'm contemplating a lot of this, that yes, I'm gonna call my kids, and because one's in another state, so I can't verbally see
How
them
old are
right
your
now.
children? How old are your children now?
I have this summer, one will be 25 and one will be 29, and then I have a 35-year-old stepson.
Yeah,
And so with that as we're going through life, that but I might do the ceremony too, because the ceremony is more for me than it is for them, even though it releases the generational moments of shame and guilt. And I might add on, actually, that's a good idea. I will add in the family story of shame and guilt to release that story so that we can move on to a more graceful, loving moment
yeah.
in our
One
family.
one thing that's good about this life between life process that I help facilitate with people is sometimes they've had unsaid things to their relatives or friends that but they weren't there able to do it, but when they were alive, so they pass on to the other side, and they still have all this guilt and shame. But when they're on the other side, they're able to go face to face with them and have a talk about it, and find it very healing. You know, And also, I've had some of my clients who had very abusive parents who passed on. And on the other side, they were able to see their parents and their soul self, and which they hardly recognized. I mean, they go, like, I think a few weeks ago, one of my clients, I told her, she sees her dad, who had been very drill sergeant like and very emotionally abusive to her whole life. And she sees him over there, and she's in trance. And so I just see that her physical body, she just, her head moves and she goes, I can't believe it. He's smiling at me. Like she never had her dad smile at her, was ever kind to her in her life. But over there, he's back home. He's not playing that role anymore. And he's just his good old, this is this other soul over there that just played that part. And he told her, he apologized. He says, look, when I came down to play that part, I didn't know how hard it was going to be, but it was hard for me to be the mean daddy to you there, because
Mm-hmm.
what you wanted me to teach you, to learn. So anyway, a lot of healing happened that way because she was able to talk to him on the other side. And I would like, Natasha, when you have some of your clients come to you and they have those kind of issues, do your clients sometimes say, okay, Natasha, tell my mom this? Or does the mom, can your client just in front of you just say, talking to mom, and can the mom on the other side hear what's just like they're in the room in the conversation, right?
Yes, and that's the thing is they usually tell me, I say, they're here, they're hearing you. I'll
Oh,
tell you what they're telling me, but I will be the interpreter for you.
yeah.
Sue, hi Sue, how are you doing? Thank you for tapping in here. I had hypnosis to help lose weight and ended up with an angelic healing of a lifetime of shame.
Wow.
Magical. Thank you for saying that. Yes, it is
Wow.
very magical.
That's
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. It's funny, when people are in a hypnotic state, that's interesting she said that, because you're open to all sorts of things, not
Mm-hmm.
just the weight issues. But that's good, and I hope that helped you lose some weight too. I know hypnosis is a good way to get your subconscious on track with you, so it doesn't so you don't do the self-sabotage all the time, you know. So
Exactly, exactly. It's funny because as we were sitting here, we're coming down to the last few minutes here. That I was called. I have my oracle cards behind me, and I was called to pull a couple oracle cards. And if I may do this at this time,
yeah,
Regan, I would love to.
all right.
So the first card, and it was the unicorns that wanted to speak. And I'm trying to get the light here so
I
it's
can't
not. It,
I can't read it, but
yeah, let me get around here a little bit. There we go. So basically, this one is
what's it?
finish what you started. You started something important, and now it's time to complete it, which makes sense that it's time to make decisions, right? And then you'll know in the morning.
Oh,
So it also says you will know in the morning when you wake up, you'll have better idea of what to do. Relax until then. And that's the thing is people want to like shoot forward and I got to do this and I got to do that. Well, yeah, start it, but yet take that break and know that as things happen, like for me, I'm sitting here thinking, I think I'll do that. Write a letter to my family and ask for the healing of the different lineages that I'm going to speak to in my life, my family line, and but am I going to do that right now? Probably not. Will I do it maybe tonight? I don't know, but I know I'll do it probably in the next 3 or 4 days.
hmm,
So, water. There's two things about water. So, water is about drinking because when we're going through something emotional, when we're dealing with life, remember to drink water. Hydration is important, yet, water is about emotions. And so, if you get to a chance, like you being, when you go to, next to the ocean and you feel the waves of the ocean, and that's such a cleansing moment to be in. So, be in the moment of the water, like me standing in my waterfall yesterday, trying to clean out the guck of the winter. Drink drink more water, eat foods with water within them, and such a fresh fruit and vegetables. So processing helps us move through.
Yeah.
But decide.
Well,
Decide what we want to do. Decide and make it clear to yourself. Decide. So it's time to clearly make a decision about what you want. And that's the thing, is intention is huge. But the last two cards, I think this is funny, was love and forgiveness.
love and forgiveness. Yeah.
Love and forgiveness. You can't you can't have one without the other. So love is the answer to you're seeking for, and forgive. It's time to let go of anger and blame. And
Yeah.
blame is guilt and shame. It's all in the same bag. Thank you, Regan, for letting me do that.
Yeah. I think maybe I mentioned last week, I think I've only told a couple people, but when I help people in this life between life process where they go to a past life, sees themselves pass away, turn around, there's a guide there. And the first thing that we usually ask is there a place of rejuvenation? Like maybe that was a difficult death or something that they had in that other lifetime. And then I'll ask the guide if there's a place of, where they can go to recoup. And about 90% of the time they say yes, and instantly my clients are there. But what the one thing that's more predominant than it's like the waterfall is the big thing that not everybody sees, but it's the most common, that cleansing. And it was beautiful. One of my clients, I said, okay, well, I want you to just experience this now. And you tell me when you're done and we'll move on to another part of heaven. So then a few minutes later, the client says, well, I like to stay here, but I think I'm done. And I said, well, can you describe to me? And she said, she put herself like one by one, the souls there would go under this waterfall. But what was happening was a waterfall, but it was light, made of light.
Mm-hmm.
All these different colors, and then she could just feel all these different colors going through her. And she said it was just the most beautiful, relaxing, cleansing feeling. And then it would kind of come down and like a little river go down and then just disappear, but they describe it as a waterfall, like you were saying with the water being important,
Mm-hmm.
how that is water's what heals you and calms you and fixes you.
Well, I know for us up here in the Northwest, not everybody saw it, but there was a thunderstorm, and it was just pretty much right in the area as we were. And I did a video on it last night on my different platforms that I do inspirational quotes. And it was interesting how we had a rainbow that lasted over half an hour.
Wow.
Over a half an hour. And it transformed into these different moments of of brightness, and it was beautiful how it just was so vibrant. I don't know if I can get it, the view of the with the light, trying to get it
Yeah.
down here. And then we had let me see, then we had this, oh, that was my video, sorry. Then we had the storm come in,
Oh, wow. Look at
and
that.
it gave it such a personality
Yeah.
around it. And to me, that was almost an emotional waterfall. The
Yeah.
water bathing, the rain that came down, and all that was in. And that's why standing in the rain sometimes is so healing. uh, we get a lot of rain up here in the Northwest, and sometimes those spring showers, it's just like, it just bathes you in the moment. So, as we're coming up on the 5 o'clock time, I want everybody to know that as you're walking through your guilt and your shame, remember that it is a human process, that we are making decisions in the moment, being human. And we're going to make mistakes. Well, what is a true mistake? That's one thing we should talk about one time. What is truly a mistake? That'd be a conversation, wouldn't it? That we're all in the moment where we have to make decisions. And sometimes we don't make the best decisions in the moment. And I want everybody to give yourself grace and love. to think about where you truly were in that moment. What emotion was triggered in you, or what moment were you in your life, or what were you called to do that did not feel right to you? And many a times that makes us do the shame and guilt. And then at the same time, flipping it around, how much have we learned from our parents and our siblings to shame and guilt and do that to others, and it's not something that we recognize a lot of times. So be aware that this is not a judgment in this conversation that we've had today, that this is a moment of awareness so that we can have a better life and feel less guilt, shame, and that stick that keeps wanting to hit us over our head that we have, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah. So how can people get a hold of you if they want to have a session with you?
You can reach me at angelicclarifications.com. You can make appointments on my website, or you can email me at natasha@angelicclarifications.com. And that's one thing I want everybody to know, that I do not hold any judgment towards decisions that you have made in a moment, because of the fact that we all are human going through this process of life.
I try to do the best that I can with my clients in that aspect too. And it makes me feel good sometimes when clients say, you're the only person in the whole world I've ever told this to, and it makes me feel good that that they know that they don't feel like I'm going to judge them or something, because that's the one thing we learned from doing all the spiritual work, that we're all here to help each other walk home, and we
Mhm.
all make mistakes and everything. And I would say just for most people is don't beat yourself up. That doesn't get
Mhm.
you anywhere to where everybody wants you to go. The only reason, if you have guilt or shame and you have it momentarily, use that as like an energy to help you make change. And once you've made the change, realize that now you're, like Natasha said, you're at a point where you have more information now, and you're more apt to not make that same mistake over again, where you have to
Mhm.
feel that, and if you fall off the wagon, then just do it again.
Yep.
Eventually you're going to get to the point where you really love yourself, even though you screw up sometimes. It's like this,
Exactly.
even though I screw up a lot of times. I want to say the other word, but I won't. Even though I screw up a lot of times, it's okay. It's okay. You're in the process of learning, and you just say, I love and accept myself, even though I'm not a perfect human being. So I just gonna do the best I can and move on. And if I goof up, I'm gonna just love myself anyway, forgive myself. You know, it does a lot in the forgiveness part. And I
It
still,
does.
even though I'm saying that and I'm preaching that right now, I've got a couple, as I'm saying that, I've got a few things popped out that I'm still got to work on, even though I've done all this work. So it's just, we're works in progress.
It is a work in progress. Being human is a works in progress.
Yeah.
But like the angel over my head here, she's putting away her sword.
Yeah.
It's time to put away that personal sword and trust and love yourself a little bit more for the
Yeah.
things that we've done.
Well, even for the
Take away the should and
right.
make the choices of, could I do that, or could I do that?
Yeah. And just remember, you can't love anybody more than you love yourself. So, if you want to be able to really love other people, get started with yourself first. And the more you love yourself, the more others you can open up to others and give them the love that they, so dearly want and need too.
Mhm.
So.
Exactly.
So you can get a hold of me at visittheafterlife.com.
I was
I
just
do
gonna.
Zoom sessions. Actually, you can even go to heaven and back on a Zoom session, which blows my mind, but it works. In California, I just got back from Southern California, saw like 8 clients in 10 days down there. Now I'm back up north. Thanks, Susan. It's always nice to hear from her.
Mhm.
And anyway, even regular therapy sessions, doing the tapping, the CFT, can be taught online. It's just a miracle what can be done online nowadays. So happy to help anybody out there that needs some help.
Mhm.
So I
And
guess with,
remember that the only thing to do is to love and forgive.
yeah, good thing to leave you with today. So until next week, you guys.
Mhm. Blessings to you, and I will see you on Zoom or I mean on this platform, same time, same channel, Wednesday at 4.
Right.
Blessings to you. Bye now.
Bye.